1980s were rallying's wildest, most dangerous decade. The cars were crazy, the drivers were fearless, and the limits were pushed so far that the sport had to hit the brakes by the end of the era. These are the coolest, most iconic rally cars of that time. Not just the winners, but the ones that stuck in people's heads, that looked incredible, sounded insane, or became cult legends. Meanwhile, World Rally's little brother, Formula One, was living its own turbocharged era, with teams like McLaren, Ferrari and Williams pushing insane horsepower and bringing in superstars like Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost. But while F1 was rewriting speed records on smooth circuits, rallying was cranking up the madness on dirt, snow, tarmac and gravel, sometimes all in one weekend, with machines just as extreme but way less predictable. Let's start with the Audi Quattro S1 E2. Yes, the original Audi Quattro changed rally forever, but the S1 E2 version was the craziest evolution. Massive wings, wild bodywork, over 500 horsepower, and a soundtrack like a gunfight in a thunderstorm. This car was Group B at full blast. So fast and brutal, it was almost undrivable. But when it worked, it was untouchable. Walter Röhrl flung it through the stages like a madman, and to this day, the S1 E2 is burned into every rally fan's brain as the ultimate Audi rally weapon. Next, the Lancia Delta S4. A car that looks like it was drawn by a sci-fi artist on too much caffeine. Mid-engined, turbocharged and supercharged, four-wheel drive, crazy light, and making over 500 horsepower. The S4 was pure mechanical insanity. It was one of the fastest rally cars ever built, and arguably one of the most dangerous, tragically linked to the deaths of Henri Toivonen and Sergio Cresto in 1986. But when you talk about cool, there's no ignoring the S4. It was peak Group B. The Peugeot 205 T16 E2 might be small, but it was a giant killer. Underneath its little hatchback body sat a full-blown rally monster. Mid-engined, four-wheel drive, turbocharged, light, agile, and ferociously fast. Peugeot dominated the mid-80s with this thing, thanks to drivers like Ari Vatanen and Juha Kankkunen. And the E2 evolution was a sharp-edged, aggressive little rocket that redefined what a rally car could be. It wasn't just cool, it was a total game-changer. Let's talk about the Ford RS200 evolution. Built specifically for Group B, the RS200 was one of the most beautifully balanced rally cars ever made. Mid-engined, four-wheel drive, carbon Kevlar bodywork, and over 600 horsepower in Evo spec. It arrived late in the Group B game, so it didn't have time to rack up big wins, but it quickly became a cult icon. One of the most technically advanced, best-handling cars of the era, and an absolute beast when fully unleashed. The MG Metro 6R4 earns a spot just for sheer audacity. Here's a tiny British hatchback, stuffed with a naturally aspirated, mid-mounted V6, sending power to all four wheels. No turbo, no gimmicks, just raw mechanical grip, instant throttle response, and a screaming soundtrack. Sure, it wasn't as successful as the turbo monsters, but the 6R4's uniqueness, noise, and crazy engineering make it one of the coolest rally cars of the decade. Plus, it just looked mean. The Renault 5 Maxi Turbo takes small car insanity to another level. Renault ripped out the humble 5's front-wheel drive setup, stuck a turbocharged engine behind the driver, and made it rear-wheel drive. Maxi Turbo was a tiny, twitchy, tail-happy beast, perfect for tight tarmac rallies like Monte Carlo or Corsica, where it could dance through hairpins and blast down narrow roads. Watching the Maxi Turbo tear up tarmac stages is still one of the most exciting sights in rallying history. We can't skip the Toyota Celica twin-cam turbo, or TA64. While European teams focused on Europe, Toyota built a monster to dominate Africa. And it did. The Celica was big, tough, and built to survive the brutal car-breaking safari and Ivory Coast rallies. It wasn't the fastest or flashiest car on European stages, but in Africa, it was king. That rugged cool factor, the idea of blasting through the desert or jungle in a Toyota war machine, makes the TA64 legendary. The Mazda RX-7 Group B might be one of the weirdest and coolest oddballs on this list. Instead of turbos and four-wheel drive, Mazda went rallying with a lightweight rear-drive coupe powered by a screaming rotary engine. On paper, it didn't stand a chance against the AWD turbo monsters, but the RX-7 made its mark in national rallies and still stands out as one of the most unique sounds and setups ever in WRC. Rotary fans still dream about what might have been if Mazda had gone all in. The Ferrari 308 GTB Group B is probably the ultimate rally unicorn. Yes, Ferrari actually built rally cars. A handful of 308s were modified for Group B by Michelotto, complete with rear-wheel drive, screaming V8s, and all the Ferrari magic you'd expect. They weren't factory-backed in the WRC, but they competed in European and tarmac rallies, where they looked and sounded incredible. Seeing a Ferrari blasting down a rally stage is pure cool factor, no matter how rare or niche it was. Finally, the Opel Manta 400. Rear-wheel drive, naturally aspirated, sharp handling, and with a silhouette that looked fast even standing still. The Manta 400 was one of the last great RWD rally cars. It couldn't quite keep up with the AWD Group B monsters, but it was a favorite among drivers who loved its balance and precision. Plus, the Rothmans livery on the Manta is one of the cleanest, most iconic looks of the whole decade. Pure rally cool. So there you have it, 10 of the coolest, most unforgettable rally cars from the most extreme decade in WRC history. Some were championship winners, some were cult heroes, and some were wild one-offs, but they all helped make the 1980s the most thrilling, chaotic, and legendary era the sport has ever seen. Even today, decades later, they still make rally fans' hearts race, because nothing has ever matched the raw, untamed spirit of 80s rallying. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Which car is your favorite?